The city lights blurred into long streaks of neon as the bus pulled away from the curb. I was the only one who got on. A glance at my phone showed it was 5 past midnight, the last bus home. I slumped into a seat halfway down the aisle, the vinyl cool against my skin, even through my jacket. The exhaustion of a long day settled over me like a heavy blanket. I just wanted to get home, crawl into bed, and forget the world existed. The bus hummed along, a low, steady drone that vibrated through the floor. Outside, the familiar streets of my city glided by. I watched the golden arches of a fast food joint, the dark windows of a closed-down bookstore, the solitary light of a 24-hour pharmacy. Each landmark was a step closer to home. I pulled out my headphones, but decided against music. The quiet hum of the engine was almost meditative. My stop was the 4th one. I pressed the red button on the pole beside me, the plastic giving a satisfying click. The stop requested sign lit up at the front. I gathered my bag and stood up, holding onto the overhead rail as the bus rumbled on. We passed the corner where my stop was, the familiar bus shelter just a fleeting shape in the darkness. The bus didn't even slow down. That's weird, I thought. Maybe the light didn't work. I pressed it again, harder this time. The sign was already lit, a bright red promise that was now feeling like a lie. "Excuse me," I called out to the driver. My stop was back there. No response. The driver was just a silhouette against the windshield, a dark shape hunched over the wheel. He hadn't moved, hadn't even tilted his head. The bus just kept going, deeper into the night. "Hey, can you hear me?" I said, my voice a little louder, a little sharper. I took a few steps down the aisle, my heart starting to thud a nervous rhythm against my ribs. "I need to get off. You missed my stop." Still nothing. It was like talking to a statue. The only sounds were the engine and the squeak of my shoes on the floor. I looked out the window again. The streets were different now. The familiar storefronts had been replaced by dark, industrial buildings and long stretches of graffiti-covered walls. I didn't recognize this part of town at all. A cold knot of anxiety started to form in my stomach. I walked right up to the front of the bus, stopping just behind the yellow line painted on the floor. "Listen, I don't know what's going on, but you need to stop this bus right now and let me out." My voice was shaking slightly. I could see the driver's reflection in the rearview mirror. Just a pair of eyes behind dark glasses, staring straight ahead at the road. He never blinked. The bus didn't stop. We rolled past empty lots and shuttered warehouses. The street lights became fewer and farther between, casting long, dancing shadows that made the world outside look menacing. Every station we passed was dark, the signs for the routes peeling and faded. It felt like we had driven into a forgotten part of the city, or maybe a different city altogether. Panic began to bubble up in my chest. I took out my phone to call for a ride, or the police, or anyone. No signal, of course. Just the emergency call's only message mocking me from the screen. I tried to open the bus doors myself, yanking on the handle, pushing against the heavy glass. They were sealed tight, locked from the driver's control. I was trapped. "Where are you taking me?" I demanded, my voice cracking. "This isn't funny. Stop the bus." I banged on the plexiglass barrier separating me from the driver. The sound was hollow and loud in the enclosed space, but he didn't flinch. He just kept driving, his hands steady on the wheel. The bus picked up speed, the engine whining as we left the last of the city lights behind. Now, there was only darkness outside the windows, a vast, empty blackness broken only by the headlights cutting a path through the unknown. I sank into the seat right behind him, my mind racing. Who was this man? Where were we going? The silence was the worst part. It was heavy, suffocating. The driver never spoke, never turned, never acknowledged my existence in any way. I was just cargo, being transported to some unknown destination. Hours seemed to pass. My initial panic slowly morphed into a strange, numb resignation. I watched the road unfold before us, an endless ribbon of asphalt disappearing into the night. We passed through sleepy, desolate towns where every window was dark. We drove through dense forests where the trees crowded the road, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching for the bus. At one point, I must have dozed off, lulled by the monotonous drone of the engine. I woke with a jolt, my neck stiff. Nothing had changed. The same dark road, the same silent driver, the same endless night. But then I saw something up ahead, a faint glow on the horizon. It grew brighter and brighter, resolving into the lights of a bus depot. Relief washed over me so intensely I almost cried. It was a depot, a final stop. It was over. The bus slowed, turning into the massive, empty lot. Dozens of other buses were parked in neat rows, all dark and silent like sleeping giants. Our bus rolled to a stop in the very center of the lot, and the engine finally cut out. The sudden silence was deafening. The driver stood up. He was tall, much taller than I'd imagined. He still didn't look at me. He just walked to the doors, pulled a lever, and they hissed open, revealing the cool, damp night air. He stepped off the bus and walked away, disappearing between two of the parked vehicles without a backward glance. I scrambled out of my seat and practically fell out of the bus. Gasping for fresh air, I was free. I looked around the depot. There was no one here. No other drivers, no mechanics, no security guards. Just rows and rows of empty buses. A sign on a distant building read terminal, but the letters were faded and half the lights were out. My phone still had no signal. I was stranded in the middle of nowhere with no idea how to get home. As I stood there, shivering in the cold, a chilling thought crept into my mind. I walked over to the bus I had just exited. The route number was still displayed on the front. It wasn't my usual route. It was just a single, illuminated word, next. Then, from the far end of the depot, I heard it. The sound of an engine starting up. One of the buses flickered to life, its headlights cutting through the darkness. The doors hissed open, and silent invitation. And standing in the doorway, I could just make out a dark, familiar silhouette. It was another driver, waiting. I had a terrible, sinking feeling that my journey wasn't over. It was just beginning. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another journey into the unknown.